welcome to this live broadcast from TrueFire Studios. We've got a special treat for you today. David Henriksson. We've had him square in our radar for quite some time. And I think you're just going to fall in love with this player for multiple reasons. Let me give you a little background. Born in Sweden, started, playing violin at age 6, acoustic at age 9, electric at 12. Member of the rock band The Events, co-wrote, co-produced 2 full-length albums, played full-time with Cassius Clay for 5 years up till 2015. Produced tons of video lessons for Scandinavia's biggest platform for online music lessons called Play Along. Performed all over Europe, 16 countries, and he received the Hagström Award from the Royal Swedish Academy of Music. The good news is he relocated to Nashville, Tennessee in 2017. Guthrie Trapp sponsored his work visa. He's the lead guitar player for country rock artist Kyle Daniel, lead guitar player for a legendary country singer. It's going to be our trivia question for the day. He's performed at the Grand Ole Opry, the Ryman Auditorium, Country Music Hall of Fame. He's performed on stage with Justin Moore, Craig Morgan. You've seen him in many music videos, performing behind and with a lot of big-name artists. His pedigree, as young as he is already, a mile long. He's here this week. We produced his very first TrueFire course. He's calling Electric Blues. That's electric with 2 Ks. And we'll learn more about that in just a moment. Nice fade out. Hey, man. How are
Howdy.
you? So, your first TrueFire experience, huh?
Yes.
What do you think so far?
It's been great so far. Should I look at you? Should I look into the camera?
If you want to talk to the folks out there, and there's a lot of them out there right now, you look in the camera. Okay. Otherwise, you can talk to me.
I said to you as
Whatever's comfortable, man.
Might look a little bit back and forth.
So we're going to do, and by the way, before we get started, let us know where you're chimed in from, and we'll shout out to you. But I can already tell we've got people from Netherlands, Belgium, Scotland already. So
nice. No Swedes?
We'll gather all the call-outs, and we'll say hey to them. So awesome. You're here. You're at TrueFire. Finally, you squeezed us into your schedule, and here you are.
Well, it goes both ways all the time, right? So
we've had a blast. Actually, we had a date next year, and then we had a cancellation here. We called you up, and the stars aligned, and you were able to make this date as well.
Yeah, I didn't think it would happen for another few months from now, but I'm glad we could all make it happen.
And it came out great. I'm thrilled to report. It's actually not very usual that we have the entire course shot before the live. There's usually a little left to do, but you're done. It's a wrap on the course.
Well, yeah, that's what we claim, at least.
Yeah, no.
Me and Tommy might lie to you.
No. If he says it's a wrap, I know that it's a wrap. You still have a photo shoot to do. But yes, the course is called Electric Blues. We have 2 Ks in there.
Yes.
Which is, kind of paying homage to your home country, right? Because a lot of the words are spelled in Sweden with a K instead of a C, yeah?
Exactly.
Okay. And we got a K in your name as well, right?
As well. Henriksson with not a CK or not the D in the last name either, like you usually do over here.
Yeah.
I have 2 in my first name, so I don't need
So
one.
the correct Swedish pronunciation is?
David Henriksson.
Nice. Sounds great. So you moved to Nashville, and we were just talking about this just before, how there's a lot of Nashville cats that have been there for a very, very long time. Yeah. All of them, really good players. There's just great players in Nashville.
No doubt about that.
And you've made a lot of things happen for yourself. There is a trivia question, so I don't want you to give away the answer. Let me tell everyone their trivia question.
Yeah, do that.
So you make sure you don't mention this artist's name.
No.
Okay. But we give away a $100 gift card at the end of this. And there's a link where you can enter the answer. Do not answer this in the chat thread because that'll give it away. But here's the question. Recently, David toured as lead guitarist for a country music legend. They played the Grand Ole Opry, the Ryman Auditorium, and many, many other high-profile venues, and did a bunch of music videos as well. Name that country music legend. Click the link to enter this trivia drawing. If you're one of the correct answers, we'll randomly pull a winner and give you a $100 gift card. So don't mention that artist while we're talking here. Okay?
I will do my best.
But, tell me how you managed to get, into the scene as quickly as you did there in Nashville.
Well, the secret to that is probably that I was there visiting twice before. I was there for about 7 weeks in the fall of 2014, and then another 2 weeks in March of 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And I laid down the groundwork with all my connections. Then I was more or less out at bars listening to music, having maybe a couple of drinks, but not really being there for the party,
Right.
Networking,
Okay.
that being my, only thing I focused on more or less, and getting inspired, of course.
Okay.
So then it was a tricky process to get a work visa, so I had to be away from Nashville for a little bit over 2 years before I finally could move over in July of 2017. But then I had kept, stayed in touch with all of my friends, and most people knew that I was about to come back. So a lot of people, started saying that, there's a new Swedish guy moving to town and he's great. Friend of ours, and some offers started coming in, and I toured with at least one new artist every week for the first 6 weeks, everything between like 5 to 35 new songs to learn every week. So I was transcribing stuff, like writing charts like never before. Halfway through those busy weeks, like after 3 weeks in town, I got a text from a guy, nowadays a friend, but then I didn't know him better than meeting him once, more or less. And he texted me, "Hey, do you want to audition for this country music legend?" And I said, like, "Who's this guy?" Country music isn't that big in Sweden, so I didn't know who it was. I Googled his name and I found out, like, he's had 18 number one singles. And I just said, of course I want to audition for this guy.
That's a hint for you.
Yeah, exactly. So another 3 weeks later, I think, the audition was held. It was me and 5 or 6 other players, I think. And what I was told was more or less that some of the other guys played really well, but I got the gig because I was the most prepared. And that was my goal. I didn't think that I would, really having a chance of getting the gig. I thought they would want someone that had more experience, maybe. But I told myself that this is my chance of getting some experience with these kind of things, like auditioning for major artists. So I've never spent more time learning 5 songs than I did then. But it paid off, and I started touring with them 2 weeks after that, and did that for about a year and a half until I quit back in January, just to kind of give myself a chance of doing some other stuff. I felt like this year would have been just a repetition of last year if I would have stayed with him, because he had his peak maybe a few years back. So
well, I'll tell you, and you've worked with a lot of other big stars, which as you Googled David's name to try to find the answer to that little trivia question, who the legendary country artist is, you'll find he worked with a lot of country artists. And still, you don't even really consider yourself a country guitar player per se, right?
No, not really, but I don't consider myself a blues guitar player or rock guitar player either. I'm just like a guitar player, I guess, that, and as the course is named, I'm mostly an electric player.
Right, exactly. So, and we talked a lot about this, how, I think you're amongst, a handful of other, younger, really gifted players who have tapped into, let's call it American roots music, you know, a little bit of blues, a little bit of country, maybe a little bit of folk, a little bit of jazz, and influenced to one degree or another by all these styles, all of which you meld into your sound today.
Exactly. And like, I've always liked these kind of, I mean, it doesn't have to be old recordings, but stuff that sound a little bit older and organic and rootsy, and never really gotten into the. Of course, there's some guitar players from the 80s with amazing technique that are cool to listen to once in a while. And I probably had a year or two in high school where I was really into that stuff, but it kind of, I was finished with that quite soon. I felt like there was other stuff that talked or spoke more to me and my musical, you know, identity, kind of.
Well, and that's what this course is about. It's a masterclass format. So you share 10 of your, you know, they're very insightful, kind of 10 of your key concepts and techniques that help make up your sound and your approach to playing guitar and music. And for each one of them, you'll then apply that in a musical context with a soloing performance study.
Yeah.
So let's give them a taste of that, shall we? So,
yes.
For example, double stops is, of course, one of the key. So let's play. Let's roll the track, Tommy. Let you perform the soloing performance study, and then we'll talk a little bit about double stops.
Absolutely.
Maybe you can teach us one or two of the double stops used in this tune.
Absolutely.
Cool. Tommy? I think that gives everyone a really great feeling for, one, why we're so excited to be kind of working with you and having you share your approaches. Richard Scott, by the way, shouts out to you. Rick from Maryland, USA. Wishing you all the best. But he, I like a term he used. He said, you sound great blues fusion. And, there's no term yet, I think, for what is really a fusion of all these American roots and a modern contemporary.
Bluesion.
Yeah, there you go. That could be it, man. But you hear a little country, you definitely hear a little rock, you definitely hear a little blues in there. We're playing over a blues track.
Obviously, yeah.
So take 2 seconds, teach us one double stop move pulled from that lesson. Like you do in a much deeper way in the course.
Yeah. I might as well, because I started playing some stuff that I actually do in the performance study, I might as well tease about one of those. I started doing this. Obviously, there's no double stops in there, but the first phrase is, and what I'm doing after that is playing, so I more or less harmonize a response to that first call, the call and response. Instead of playing, I play, so I play a third above the first phrase and play like parallel descending thirds within the A Mixolydian mode. And that's a way that I like to use stuff. You can also play. give it a little bit more of a country flavor as well. Bend 2 strings at the same time.
So David digs much deeper in again, the way, by the way, there's over 4 hours of content in this master class.
I didn't expect it to be that much, but Tommy made me just talk and talk.
Tommy likes to dig deep, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
You have 10 backing tracks, 10 soloing performance studies, and 10 demonstrations and lessons on a particular approach or technique. So we just gave them a little taste of double stops. Let's do a quick shout out, man. Here you've got fans tuned in live
fans feels
right now. They're all fans.
Okay.
San Diego, Seattle, India, Scotland, Belgium, Harlem in the Netherlands, Texas, Las Vegas, Florida, Norway, Georgia, Buenos Aires, Argentina, Sweden. Must be family. New Jersey, Mexico, the UK, St. Petersburg, Russia, Hungary, Edinburgh, Estonia, Oregon, Transylvania. I love this cat from Transylvania.
Yeah.
Man. He tunes in a lot.
Yeah, that's really cool.
What time is it in Transylvania? I'm dying to know. Melbourne, Australia, Connecticut, Moscow, Russia, and Maryland.
That's cool.
It's crazy. The reach, thanks to technology, we can be sitting here together and connecting with other folks that are, passionate about music, passionate about the guitar.
Yeah.
And we're
I'm
a
glad
family,
you joined us.
So let's do another demonstration. So you talk also about pedal steel, that technique.
Yeah, pedal steel inspired bends and stuff.
Why don't you show us the technique first, and then we'll do the performance study.
Yes, a lot of the stuff I'll do in this course is actually playing double stops in different ways. There will be 2 notes sounding at the same time, kind of harmonizing with myself, and pedal steel bends is one way of doing that. This track is later going to be in the key of G. So, for example, if we want to bend into a G chord, we can do this. We have this chord and more or less grab both the highest 2 strings on the 10th fret and bend the B string up a whole step. And that can, if we're thinking pedal steel, we can really do a volume swell and get it very pedal steel-like if we do it in the right way, but we can also really dig in with the, if you play with the hybrid picking technique. Get a really edgy, bitey attack from really pulling with the fingers. So that's a couple of examples of how we can use it in a more gentle way, or the...
Nice. So, Tommy, roll a track, and now put that to use. Again, for each key concept or technique, you get a full-length lesson, drill down on that technique and demonstration. And then you get to put it to work over a backing track immediately. And what we love about this course, we know there's a lot of folks out there that love playing the blues. Who doesn't love playing the blues? And most of us, and I'm including myself in that, kind of get tired of playing the same old blues licks, right?
Yeah.
So David brings to the table a lot of very, very, effective, very cool moves that you can integrate over whatever blues you happen to be playing. One of the things that you said that I love is how you're drawn to, tell them about how you're drawn to simpler chord progressions, but ... Tell them.
My ears has never really maybe understood the very complex harmonies sometimes of jazz and similar styles, fully at least. And I've liked quite simple harmonic music, stuff that has 3 or 4 chords maybe. But I've liked, after getting through maybe playing but mostly knowing about what you can do with the minor pentatonic or major pentatonic scales, I've gotten into like, how can I make kind of a simple harmonic background more interesting by applying different concepts. And also quite often in my playing, as you will notice, these kind of different dual lines, which is either, pedal steel bends or double stops, or using an open string that rings along with something. And instead of for me, that's enough to do like interesting concepts over kind of simple background. Like my brain can't cope up with it, or like keep up with a more flashy harmonic background of jazz sometimes.
And what's great about that in our world anyway is, most of us don't get to go on tour with, legendary artists. Most of us get to play with our buddies.
Yeah.
Maybe go to the local blues jam or jam night at the local club.
Yeah, absolutely.
And almost always you're playing over these 3 and 4 chord simple progressions.
Yeah, and that might be the reason partially as well that I never really found a professional use for these. I never had a jazz gig. I never been offered a jazz gig. There's not much of a jazz scene in Sweden. In the US, maybe more so, but like that's not really what I've been drawn to. And rather, some of these stuff you can use in a soul background or even pop or whatever to create textures with open strings. That's a good idea, for example.
Absolutely. With the soloing performance studies, while everything, it's transcribed, it's tabbed, we sync the tab and notation to the video, and
which is an awesome thing.
Which is awesome. You can loop it, you can slow it down.
Yeah.
And, feel free to learn the entire solo. But I know what most of us do. We go and we find that one move or that one lick that we really like, and, and we cop it, and
I think that's
make it our own.
This is what I'm trying to do. Like, I'm explaining everything in detail enough, so hopefully you'll understand why I've chose to play those things and why it works in the context and why it actually bridges different chords together and the transitions and everything. So you don't have to feel like you got to learn everything. Like, pick out the bits and pieces that catches your ear and try to, build a concept around that, or like understanding the idea. So it's not only lick. Everything is built around an idea.
No, like how you harmonize your own lines in the way that you just described. Which is cool, because all 10 of these, we're just going to be able to cover, touch on just maybe 5 of them. But, just the concept itself applied to whatever it is that you're doing today will open up, a door to a lot of new kind of sounds or sonic landscape, as they say. Okay, a little bit of housekeeping, man. Number 1, as usual, we do have a promo code. It's David Live. If you look underneath the video, you'll see it there. You can pre-order this course. This is David's first course, but you can pre-order it right now or anytime within the next, I think, 24 or 48 hours with that David Live promo code. Take 25% off. It's a great deal.
For sure.
You're going to want this one. I guarantee you're going to want this one.
I might even pre-order it.
There you go. So you'll see a link to where you can get the pre-order. You'll see the code there. Also underneath the video, you'll see the link to where you can post the answer to the trivia question. Name this legendary country artist that David played with all these big venues. And also you'll note right underneath the video, it's that thumbs up. You see it right there. If you're digging what you're seeing and hearing, there's no better way to share your love and show your love for David by clicking that thumbs up. And if you get us northward of where we're at right now, I will force this gentleman to play another tune off of the course, okay? I'm going to force you to do that.
Are you sure forcing is the right way to go?
I'll twist your arm. How's that?
Okay, ouch.
Okay. Let's do any questions you have for David, please post them. We'll try to answer them all, towards the middle of this. Also, someone just chimed in, trying to find her name. I'll find it in just a moment, but apparently you played with her. She had something very nice to say about you.
Oh, I wonder who that can be.
Kyle Daniel said very nice things about you. You've played with Kyle, right?
Yeah, that's my current main gig.
There you go. Show them how you can play both guitar parts in Revival by the Allman Brothers. Can you do that?
Do you know what song it is?
On demand, huh?
Do you know what song it is?
No.
It starts. Damn you!
What?
It's an instrument. It starts with a minute and a half of instrumental dual guitar stuff.
Play a part.
And it starts like this.
Of course, I know that song. Of course. Yeah.
There's a bunch of other stuff that we can go through some other time.
Oh, some other time. Okay. Well, I want you to know, Kyle said, "Go, David. So proud of you, brother. Sounding great as always. Legitimately the most talented guitarist I've ever shared the stage with."
Well, okay.
That's
just say
sweet.
that, and I'll be happy to hear
awesome,
it. But he plays on a regular basis with other
Kyle,
great people.
thank you. Thank you so much
brother.
for chiming in. Okay, let's go back to the course. You also talk about open strings and pedal tones or drones.
Yes.
Teach us a little bit and then put it to work over the track.
Open strings is something that I use a lot, and something that's common in country playing that I've stole from that is like pull-offs to open strings. Maybe do the... So I'm just playing more or less parallel sixths on the A and G strings, and then pulling off to an open G string in between. That's the way to use it. Sometimes I've let it... This sounds weird saying the G string all the time, repeating that. Like, why did I choose that string?
It's okay. We're in guitar world here.
Let's use the open D string. And we're gonna... something that rings, that's more of the drone kind of use. Mm-hmm. Or the pedal tone, that could be... Thunder.
Nice.
A pedal note means going back to one note
yes.
in between every other.
So all of those can be applied, certainly in the blues, country, rock, pretty much any style, right? Certainly any contemporary style. Yeah, you just got to use it in
the right way, yeah.
So, Tommy, can you roll the track? Show us how you apply that, in a musical context. Not that was a musical, but you know what I mean. Over a backing track.
I might try to throw in some AC/DC here over this New Orleans style groove.
Hopefully this is all in a musical context, okay?
Can I do... That was weird.
Okay, stretching it. Roll the track, Tommy. Let's see, just 3 examples out of the 10 kind of key concepts in performance studies.
Yep.
And it should be pretty clear to everyone. Even you, Scott Peters, I see you chimed in there. He's my buddy up north, very sharp cat.
And what does he say?
He's got a guitar in the closet, played a lot when he was younger. If this, Scott, doesn't get you to dust off that guitar, put it in your lap, and start digging in, I don't know what will. But thank you, Scott, for tuning in. I know you're crazed right now.
Yeah, thank you.
So we do have some questions. We're going to ask those in a second.
Awesome.
But again, I want to get the thumbs up northward of where we are. Okay?
And where is it now?
So it's in a very good place. You're getting a lot of love.
Okay.
But I want to twist your arm. I want you to play that other song. It's one of my favorites. So... help me out there, folks. Just, move your little cursor over to that thumbs up.
Do I know which one we're referring to?
Click
I
it.
don't think I know which one you're meaning.
Which one? No, you're not going to know. I'm just going to throw it out at you, and we're going to see just how good you are, okay? You ready to do a couple of questions?
Yeah, I'll try.
Okay. First of all, a lot of people want to know what gauge strings you're using, which I asked you myself, which I actually played that guitar. The guitar is, and we'll run it down at the end of the show,
Absolutely.
so don't go too deep.
This is worth
the
talking
guitar
about.
is incredible. Tell them gauge strings, though.
I play in normal tuning right now, and then I use 10 through 46 gauge. Okay. Almost always. Sometimes I go with 10 and a halves if I maybe gonna play slide or something like that. But quite often on my main gig with Kyle that just chimed in, we play detuned to E flat, like a half step down.
Yeah.
And then I usually throw on 11 through 49s to kind of even out the tension and everything.
Good.
Especially since I play some slide on that gig as well. Otherwise 10 gets too,
slinky.
it's just too slinky.
So,
kind of.
What's interesting is we've had... I think of you guys as the young masters kind of leading this new generation of players, right? And I'm seeing a real migration away from the lighter strings into the heavier strings, 10s, 11s. I think...
Josh Smith plays 12s or 13s.
12s and 13s, And one of the comments that we always get here in chat or otherwise is the tone,
Yeah.
And, a heavier gauge string is going to give you a little more tone. It's going to be a little more workout on your hands, but it gives you that great tone,
But what I think, though, is good to, just my opinion, my humble opinion, is that for, if you're in a 3-piece band and playing a lot of single note lines or more sparse chordal work, thicker strings will absolutely sound bigger, and that might be perfect then. But if you're doing, more complex chords, which absolutely jazz players do, and they usually favor thicker strings, but they usually play with a very clean tone.
Yes.
And if you want to use a lot of gain, and, have that clarity, especially if you're playing in a bigger setting with 5-6 people on stage, I don't think thicker is necessarily better. It comes to sweet spot, where it's just going to mud everything up. Like if you play one note, yes, it sounds fat and big, but if you start playing 2-3 notes, it just sounds a little bit undefined, kind of. That's in my experience, at least.
Well, we respect your opinion, obviously.
But you don't agree.
How could we disagree with you, man? Okay, let's one more question. Tor 71 wants to know more on the guitar and tone. We're going to do that later.
Yep, absolutely.
Powell is asking, David, would you show how you are targeting chords via bends?
Absolutely. Let's see. The bending track I kind of did in the key of G. So what I started out, I just showed a bend. And this is more or less approaching the upper part of this chord structure. And if you want to do a nice transition, you can release that. So then you bend up to the 3rd, and you also play the 5th of the G chord. That part. And then when I release that, that will go to the fifth and the root of the D chord. So if you want to now play something that transitions very naturally and in the pedal steel kind of way, where they would, either use a knee lever or a foot pedal to do this.
Right. So you are definitely thinking about targeting chord tones when
very
you're
much
doing.
so.
Okay.
Yes, in the breakdowns of the performances, I will specify almost all of that whenever, especially when it comes to a chord change, what notes I'm approaching and what they're coming from, kind of.
And David covers that in this course, Electric Blues, with 2Ks, right? Let's talk about right-hand tonal concepts.
Yeah, this is something that people, you've probably heard or read, tone is in the hands, or no, it's not, it's in the gear. A Marshall will never sound the same as a Fender. No, but my hands won't really sound the same as yours either, depending on... I tried to explain this as really in depth in the segments in the course, but a brief breakdown is more or less that there's many parameters, but without changing any settings, not even changing my pickup or touching my controls on the guitar here, and not even playing with my fingers, I still consider that I have quite a few different options. I know that a common thing is that people will be told that closer to the bridge, brighter, right? You can hear that. And closer to the fretboard, a little bit rounder and mellower and more full. And it's still, a few degrees of difference in between. But I've heard people also talk about playing with a round edge compared to the pointy, and that's a difference as well. But I feel like there's a few parameters which people don't really talk about that I've noticed is important as well, and that's the angle. I hope this comes across through cameras. If you're angling your pick like this, or if you have it parallel to the strings, or if you angle it like that, I feel like there's a difference. This is parallel. It's a little bit of angle. And when you combine like lengthwise or how you hold the pick, and also if you hit it from underneath, like closer to the pick guard, it's almost like this finger pulling snap, But if I attack it from above, especially... I hear a difference here. I hope that it comes across on YouTube as well. Do you hear it?
Absolutely, you can hear the difference.
And how much of the pick you let out of your grip, kind of, if you play just like that. It'll be a little bit less attack compared to if you hold it like that. I wouldn't recommend that. There's other ways of getting more crisp attack, but... You just hear more of the plastic actually affecting the tone. And if I would say the extremes are probably, without even changing pickups again, to hit it from kind of the direction of the pick guard, hold it parallel to the string, and really... That sounds quite thin to me. Still a usable tone in the right context if you want it to sound really, edgy. But if I take this end and I direct it a little bit like this and hit it from the top, that almost sounds like two different instruments.
Absolutely. Yeah, what's...
So that's something that we can go, or that I'll go into more in depth in the video, but it's something that when I had some like classical guitar and piano lessons, when I was studying to be an electric guitar teacher back home in Sweden, they started talking to that about like how you can affect the tone with your hands, because you don't have as much gear to hide behind, right? If playing classical, acoustic, or piano. And they did that the first like beginners lessons. They started like, this is how you hit the note on the piano, or this is how you rest stroke on the acoustic nylon string guitar, and we can affect it very much with how we hit it as well. But it's usually taught that no, you have to twist the EQ knob, the mid-range knob on your amp, or try a new set of pickups, or
it's such a great point, and
I hope that it comes across
I would say,
like that.
In our entire library, we don't have you know, there are many lessons that kind of talk about the right hand using your fingers, but you really drill deep and I think lifted the hood on a mystery that many of us have, which is, you know, we're so focused on getting the notes and the picking pattern and the speed of a particular line. And then once we have a handle on that, it's like, well, why doesn't that sound the way
it took me a while
that
to,
I
like,
hear it?
I don't think I thought about EQ in my amp or how I held my pick for...
It's like
you know,
EQ
until I was
in
up
your
in my
right
20s.
hand. Right, exactly.
It should be easy. It's just my hands, you know.
Right.
But one thing that I forgot to mention, I think is very important. It's like, obviously, we all know that we have a dynamic rig. The harder we hit, we can get more overdrive, especially if I go to the humbucker. And it kind of cleans up really nice.
Right.
But it's also, especially if you do single notes, I feel like if you can experiment with how much, you know, headroom is a phrase used in different ways. But if you hear the difference here, when I hit quite light, and you can't really hear any fret noise, hopefully. But when I start, you hear that happens. It's kind of when the strings not only hit the fret that I'm actually pushing down, but the fret in front of that. And then you get that singy kind of attack in the beginning of the note that's super efficient sometimes. And sometimes, you know, if you do the kind of Stevie Ray, you wouldn't want to do those bands with too light of an attack. You want that, you know, that sizzle to come through. But if you can, with your specific guitar and your gauge of strings and your setup, know how hard you can hit it. I don't hear the frets now, really. Now I hear that, you know, light. And to know when and when not to apply that kind of pressure, I think is a really good thing to master and get closer to the tone you hear in your head or on recordings.
Yeah, and you know, we're all after tone and we think it's the amp or the pedal or what is he doing, and it's the right hand EQ, as you put it. It's what
There's a lot of EQ in there.
Right.
Yeah.
Tommy, can you roll the track that, you know, correlates to this lesson, and let's hear some right hand EQ.
Yeah.
Great demonstration of the lesson.
Thank you.
And also a very cool solo to try to learn ourselves, you know. This course is chock full of this kind of stuff. Very like aha moments, great lessons on technique, creative approaches, great solos to, you know, to do your best to try to learn and play all the way through. The backing tracks are terrific. And a whole vocabulary of cool licks to add to your own thing, you know?
Yeah, and hopefully licks that can be broken down to, or that I try to help you break down to ideas that can go further than just, I don't want it to be a lick that ends with the last note of the lick, or when you slide down and pull down your volume note. That's not the end of the lick necessarily. You know, you can always take it one more step, or even maybe pull it back a little bit, you know. So understanding how these ideas works is as important, or maybe even more important, than to learn how to play the specific licks. I'd say you can always change the licks, but if you understand the idea, that's my goal.
That's great, man. A little bit of housekeeping. I just want to repeat again, there's that promo code, David Live, 25% off. You can pre-order this course, Electric Blues, today, or I think tomorrow as well, and take 25% off it. The trivia question, again, and don't post the answer in the chat thread. What legendary country artist did David play with, tour with, do music videos with, played all those big venues? Name that artist, and you're entered in the drawing for the $100 gift card thing. Questions, we're going to start asking some questions in just a moment. So post them now, and we'll try to get David to answer them all. And don't forget the thumbs up. We're very close.
Come on.
You do me a big favor if you get this to get it to 3 digits, and I can twist his arm, and we'll get him to play.
Can I pull up my phone and put thumbs up?
Call your family, do whatever you need to do, because I want to get that.
I want to see what track you're interested in here.
You'll get it, Okay, some questions here. Let's see. All your questions, by the way, about pickups and effects chain, the guitar, we are definitely going to get to that in just a moment. From Jano, he wants to know, David, when did you start to dig more into music theory during your career? And when did you find that it would help you as a guitar player to know more about theory and harmony?
I'd say that probably has to be when I was like 15. So, I had played acoustic guitar for a few years, but it was quite soon after starting playing electric more seriously. I applied for, I know that music college is common over here in the States, but there's many music high schools already in Sweden. So from when you're like 16 years old, you can go and study music, 40% of your time in the school for 3 years, which is awesome, obviously. And I applied to a few of those and went to the biggest one in Sweden called Rytmus, which is a shortening of rhythmical music, Rytmus.
Nice.
Great school. Found a lot of good friends there, had great teachers. And we had music theory, on the schedule once a week for 3 years, more or less. And some people, especially I think drummers and singers who couldn't really see those things on their instruments, they got a little bit bored and usually had a hard time to learn those things. But for me, I wanted to see how that laid out on the guitar. And for me, that was more obvious for some reason than on the piano. It should be very easy on the piano. But for me, it was more logical on guitar.
Important, right?
So what?
It's important to understand music theory. It helps you as a player.
For me, it helped a lot, but I also know that I sometimes can't really let go of it. And I think about it also on stage when I should really just think about a melodic and creative and rhythmic flow. I'm in the moment. I'm just let's approach the third of the next chord here. Maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe I just should hear where this is taking me. But still, I could probably tell you after quite many solos I've taken live, that's where I was going. I sometimes remember hearing halfway through a solo, and after this, I was going for the third in the next. I did some double stops and I used some open strings. So in a way, that's something that I would like to be able to at least step out of. But it's so integrated in my way of hearing and seeing music. I mean, that's the way I unfortunately listen to music sometimes as well. He went for the third there. He approached it chromatically from below, and sometimes that's a little bit too much, maybe.
Yeah, well,
but it's definitely important for the way I sound. I've applied a lot of theoretical concepts.
It's great to hear that you suffer from what most of us students of guitar suffer from, which is we spend so much time studying, listening to lessons. We've got so much knowledge being kind of pounded into our head that it's hard to let go of that. You're always thinking about it when you get the chance to play. Mimi Fox, who's a phenomenal jazz guitarist, was in here recently. And she summed up what a lot of jazz players say, which is, you know, you have to practice, you have to study, you have to know your theory, you have to know your harmony, but you have to forget it all when you're on the stage.
Exactly, and that's what I'm still trying to, you know, fight. But I would say like this, I haven't learned that much new theory, you know, for some years, I'd say. I'd rather try to focus on, since I'm not heavily into jazz necessarily, and I don't play over that complex progressions most of the time, I'd rather work a lot on how to apply. You know, I learned the modes when I was 15 or 16 years old, but I didn't know how to make it sound good in a Dorian scale right away. You know, that took years of, you know, experimentation and like, how do this sound, or how do I make it's the same 7 notes, but like, how do I want my Dorian to sound? Like, how do I find my voice within the Dorian mode? Kind of. So it's rather more like that I've been studying and trying to get deeper into how I want to apply different ideas and over the theory that I learned, you know, half a life ago for me.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Another question for you: do you read music?
Yes. I'm not good at, you know, getting something right in front of me. Play this now. But if I get a few hours or a day or so, I can dig through stuff and learn it.
So Volker asks, he supposes that you read music and wants to know, is that a skill that is useful to you? And what do you use it most for?
I don't think I've ever gotten a gig because my ability to read music. Maybe because other skills that's been tied to the ability of being able to, you know, kind of secondary vibe that, you know, I could read music, therefore I could learn this. That's why I got the gig. But and I never had to read music on stage, maybe once, but then I still, you know, had gone through the material. It was just there as reference and kind of for to a little bit of support because I had memorized everything. So I wouldn't say, I mean, my theory knowledge and application of that is way stronger than my reading abilities. Because as an electric guitarist, you just don't run into those situations very often, I'd say.
Well said.
And in Nashville, I never ran into it. You get number charts,
you
Nashville number charts. If you don't know about that, that might be something. You probably have courses on that already.
Oh yeah, Nashville number
seeing
system.
chords as numbers.
Absolutely,
Great tool.
And that's very, very important, I think, for anybody to understand that. And that's not heavy theory. That's just kind of a coding system to be able to move things to a different key and quickly communicate what progression, like 1-4-5. Is part of a, you know. John Steele wants to know, this is a good question, John. What's the single biggest aha moment that you had learning the blues? The biggest aha moment learning the blues?
Ooh.
Good question.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still learning the blues, I guess, but I remember, you know, hearing Stevie Ray Vaughan for the first time when I was 14. I got one of his greatest hits collections on my 14th birthday. And when a teacher, you know, shout out to John Oltione, the best teacher I've had, crazy Romanian guy that came to Sweden and taught a bunch of people to play guitar. When he showed me just the, maybe turn off the delay here, but just the I'm like, okay, licks are cool, but rhythm is very important as well. And when that's probably something that is tied to me seeing, you know, dual melodic lines as well, because there's a bass line here, and there's kind of a percussion thing going on. This, you know, the upstrokes. We hear this, but and to separate the brain, that's the first thing that comes to mind, learning something that is tied to early blues kind of.
Good answer, man.
skills or like learning that stuff early on?
Yeah, students, again, I can speak from the student perspective, certainly. We seem to overlook the importance of rhythm and playing and learning rhythm guitar.
Yeah.
And love to skip right into soloing and learning licks and stuff like that.
I have to do something in the future where I can apply some of these concepts maybe to rhythm playing as well. That would be really fun.
Yeah, exactly. Another question from Jonathan. What is the most important aspect of soloing for you and playing around the chords? Like, if you were to distill it, I'm sure you're actually talking about 10 very important things here in this course. But
absolutely.
One of the things that students always struggle with is we kind of get locked into the pentatonic box.
Yeah,
okay?
for sure. I know how that is.
What's the best way, I guess is another way of stating that question. How do you unlock yourself from the box and think about playing maybe the changes?
Yeah. I remember I had a guitar teacher some years later when I was in my early 20s. I had guitar teachers every year except for one from when I was 9 until I was 24. So I was studying with a bunch of great instructors back home in Sweden. He said in some styles, maybe blues and rock being some of those, it's usually in the style and it's okay to play more in general in the key. You can play the same blues lick over the 1 and the 4 and the 5 chord. It can usually sound fine. Mm-hmm. But if you do that in country or even more so in jazz, mm-hmm. it can sound weird, like you're not really following the progression. So you have to be more specific. Instead of being in general in the key, you got to be specific over every key change. Sometimes it's all within the key, but sometimes, if it's in the key of G and we're playing G major scale or G major pentatonic, it goes like this, 1, 4, 5, but maybe it comes a flat 7 chord where 2 of the notes are still within the scale. Mm-hmm. But if you would approach, the major 7 of the G major scale, mm-hmm. the F sharp, and accidentally hit that right when you go to the F chord, it will sound like you're not really know what you're up to. Right. So knowing when the changes comes and how you can bridge those, maybe know if there's a 1 or 2 common notes between the chords.
Common tones. Yeah.
To use that, or the ones that are actually changing. So when going from the G to the C, maybe you want to do that change, going from the G to the D, or outline those changes, or G, the 5th of G goes to the 3rd of C, for example. Knowing those things, and another thing probably tied to his question as well, I feel like I've been trying to work on, if the progression is kind of not moving around that much, it's a lot of time on each chord, or maybe just a 1 chord vamp. I try to move around quite a bit to compensate for the harmony not moving, and rather so if there's a lot of movement in the chords, I've been trying to find minimalistic movements. Mm-hmm. If it changes every bar, mm-hmm. Something like that. Now I kind of missed the reverb and delay here a little bit. But I didn't move around a lot, and I can even chordal structure. If it changes that often, but if I'm on G for like 16 bars before something happens, or like a standard cover song, like you might play in bars, Mustang Sally. It's like a blues, but it's it's twice the length on each chord.
That's right.
So you have quite a lot of time. You don't have to stay, within the, maybe in the key, but you can do some out stuff, and you have more time to experiment. Like, so I've been trying to find that balance of compensating for if the chord, if the harmony changes are happening fast, I want to minimize what I'm doing sometimes. And if it's longer time between the changes, I can dig into some more concepts and stuff like that.
So let me ask you, we have a question here, string theorist, and I think this is a question we all encounter in our, the rite of passage to learn how to play the blues.
Yeah.
He asks, what devices help create movement when playing simple changes such as 1-4-5? You're actually talking about that right now, you know? And here's like the typical situation. Someone knows a minor pentatonic scale, a 1-4-5, and they're just kind of randomly playing any of the notes out, and they can get by with that, right?
Absolutely. If you play it with intention and, you know.
You can get by with that.
Yeah.
But point out one thing that somebody can do over a 1-4-5, say even with the pentatonic scale, to create a little more movement and a little more, you know, style.
Yeah. I'd say if you want to stay within the really pentatonic, let's try to keep it like that. Then you got to figure out which note goes over which chord, and maybe not necessarily just as a chord note. It can be as a, you know, a coloring note or like extension.
Good enough.
So we're still playing over like dominant 7th chords here, even if we would use the minor pentatonic.
Yeah.
So this is obviously the root of this chord.
Yeah.
This is going to be the sharp 9, which gives us kind of this Henriksson thing, especially if there's someone playing the major 3rd, you will get this kind of clash. But if you know the sound of that, you can use it with intention instead of, and especially if you start grabbing it a little bit, giving it kind of a quarter note, slight bend. This one will be very clashy. Let's see if I can reach it. That's stretchy. That's usually not really sounding. I mean, if you played, that sounds great, but it's gonna sound like, what are you waiting for? You got to move on here.
Right.
So you don't want to land maybe on that note for too long. This is super safe. It's the 5th. You can stay there or bend it. You can milk that for a while. It'll be totally fine. Can go up to the flat 7. You know, map out. I'm going to talk about that in the course. Mapping out what works over what chords.
You do a great job of that in the course.
Thank you. Or over the C chord. This will be the 5th, a chord tone. Absolutely. Or this. Flat 7 sounds great over blues. The root, super safe as well. Yeah. And here, the 9th, very bluesy sounding voicing here. You can over the C. Now I actually use the 3rd there as well. That sounds great as well. Yeah. But this note was also the 4th over C, as well as this note is the 4th over G. Yeah. It sounds like, move on, man. Like, when are you gonna either bend that up to the 5th of this chord, or maybe bring it down there if you want to keep it within the chord, but not really in the scale. And the same goes for the 5 chord then. Like, this will be our sharp 9 again. This is the 4th, sounds a little bit weird. This is the sharp 5, which sounds really, you know, if you don't play it with intention, it's going to sound kind of odd if you land on that. If it, it's like, are you implying an augmented chord here, or are you not really just in control of what you're doing?
Right. So that's a great answer. And David really
figure out the functions of each note over each chord.
Exactly. String theorist, I hope that helps to answer that question. It's a universal question, and one of the reasons we're so thrilled about this specific course and the way David teaches is he really does, as you can tell, just, you know, make these kind of sophisticated concepts really accessible, really usable, and you don't have to really learn, and you already know the notes, you already know the scales, you already, you know, there's just some of these cool applications of things that you already know. Okay. Let me just check our thumbs up, okay? You guys better have got me there, because I really want to hear this tune today. And we're close, okay? How about 10 more thumbs ups? I know there's enough of you out there. Just stop for a minute, okay? Multitasking. Go click that thumbs up and help me get to one of my favorite tunes to have David play over, okay? Let's go back to the course. There was another concept in the course I loved, symmetrical patterns.
Yeah.
Give us an idea of what that is. Then let's apply it over a track.
Yeah. Symmetry happens in life overall sometimes, I guess. But on the neck, you can, I gave this example. we're playing this track later and also in the chorus in the key of D. So if we're seeing a D chord here, there's already some, like, this is part of the D Mixolydian scale that we're gonna use mostly. But also this chord, and all these notes are part of the Mixolydian scale. So it's a D triad and it's a C triad. And it's obviously lining up here, synchronized, the same frets on these two strings, the 5th and the 7th. And it also happens on all the 6 strings in this specific position. So we have all the notes here that goes into, not like we can't play this, but we can get the 3rd here if we want to. So if we jump octaves, we have every note accessible within the D Mixolydian scale here. And then we can choose to see these. Or there's a B minor and A minor triad over the D. And, can line up in many different ways as well. But just see those like small boxes maybe. Mm-hmm. Here it lines up over all the strings. Yeah. But I can also see it around here where around this D shape, or like actually E shape, but the D chord. I can do. I see it's the same here. Or even if we think the minor pentatonic, obviously. That's also a symmetrical shape that we can see. Or we can try to find different voicings maybe within that. Play several strings at the same time.
Sweet.
So visualizing that and finding, not necessarily play it symmetrical like that, but visualize that and see those as the pool of notes that you can grab from.
Yeah, I love this lesson.
I think it's
such a great lesson.
Something that I've been using to try find like
Let's
interesting
roll
chord
the
voicings.
track and show them how that sounds in. Nice. Great example of the lesson you just gave us. And it sounds fantastic, obviously. And it's right
Thank
there.
you.
We all know that. It's just how to apply that knowledge in a musical way. Well, the good news is, for me anyway, and I know for everyone that's tuned in now, is we busted 100. Actually, we have 108 thumbs up.
That's awesome.
So I don't think I literally have to twist your arm. But before you play that tune, would you give us a nice rundown on the guitar and, your gig, what you would gig with, what amps you're usually playing with, what pedals you usually playing with. But please start with that gorgeous guitar.
This has a nice story to it. I think it was a couple of days after I got that phone call or the text like, hey, do you want to audition for this well-known country artist? This luthier, Swedish guy, I'm from Sweden. I play a bunch of Swedish gear. He reached out to me and like, hey man, looks like it's going well for you in Nashville. You want me to build you a Strat? And I was like, how can I say no to that? You know, my main guitar at the time was a Tele. I had a Strat in Nashville. I had a great Strat back home in Sweden, but I didn't dare to bring that because it has Brazilian rosewood in the fretboard, and they're a little bit picky with that kind of wood. So I said, like, yes, of course, I want you to build me a Strat, and we spent a couple of weeks agreeing on the different specs. So it's an alder body, and the finish is really aged Olympic white. It almost, I mean, it looks kind of yellow, over a 3-tone sunburst. And I showed both Brad and Tommy here how you barely can't feel a transition in between. It's so thin finish, and it's beautiful. The neck is roasted maple, and the fretboard is, it looks like rosewood, but it's not, because we didn't dare to do that. And I can't remember what the fretboard material is right now, actually. But, you know, kind of standard Goto hardware, no lock-in tuners, anything specific like that. And I put new pickups on this. It came with his custom wound pickups that he made for this guitar and for me. But I like those a lot, and that's why I didn't change them until last week. I was a little bit intrigued to try something else, and I've been using pickups from another Swedish manufacturer called Lundgren pickups, or Lundgren pickups. It's been around since the early 90s. And this is a combination of two of his series of pickups that he designed with another Swedish guy who designed for both Mad Professor and Barefoot, really well-known pedal companies. So these are called the Lundgren BJFE, and this is a kind of medium output humbucker and 2 single coils that goes well with that. And what we're going to say as well is when this course launches, or like when we actually start, when you can actually download this on the website, there will be a giveaway arranged for a set of these pickups. So there'll be a chance to win a humbucker and 2 single coils, a matched HSS Strat setup, or you can put in other kinds of guitars as well, of course.
So the maker though of the guitar, pronounce his name again.
Sonnemo Guitars, amazing luthier Mattias Sonnemo.
Spell it, would you, so people can look up.
SONNEMO. Maybe we can put the link there in the description.
Yeah, and he is, by the way, very well known and has an incredible reputation.
He hasn't been around for that long, but the last 5 years are probably the most busy luthier in Sweden.
One of the younger, you know, masters on the scene today. Unbelievable.
He's so good, and like a lot of people in Sweden has tried, you know, more or less everything on the market, and they, you know, maybe also want to support local if they can, but they would never choose his guitars if they weren't as good as or better than other stuff. So it's really cool. Kind of vintage look, obviously, but you know, the neck joint looks like this. It's very nice access to the upper frets. Compound fretboard. I think it's 9.5 through 12 inches. Really comfortable to play. Not really super jumbo frets, but kind of between medium or like, you know, not super big, but still comfortable to play.
So you showed the signature on the back. People will want to know, who is that?
That's a Swedish hockey player that plays in Nashville Predators. I went to, it was kind of a signing session for him that this like travel agency put together, and they invited me as well to talk a little bit about my career over in Nashville. And I asked him to sign it because I didn't have anything else to sign, and I thought that he would maybe write it a little bit smaller, but it's kind of big.
That's fine.
It's what it is.
That's fine. And typically, what's your backline look like on stage?
Again, we'll thank Sweden. It's a amp manufacturer called Olsson Amps or Olsson Amps. Great guy called John Olsson. John Olsson. I've been working with him for the past 4 years or so. I have 2 amps that are custom built by him. Super pretty looking with these like Western Tolex finishes. You have a guitar case out here that has that kind of a textured finish. It looks really cool. And one of those are not really Fender style, but still with 6L6 power tubes. And one of them are not really Marshall style, but EL34 power tubes. And not too many controls and stuff like that, and I usually mostly use them as pedal platforms because they're both 40 watts of decent headroom, or actually really good headroom, I'd say. And I just feel like that's usually more. If I don't know how loud I'm going to be able to play or allowed to play at a specific venue, I'd rather have a loud, clean amp and then get my compression and my drive from, or different levels of drive from different pedals. And those amps both use, or like work really well for that kind of usage.
And typically, what is your pedal board? You
The
go
pedal
out
board
on a
I'm
gig.
using right now has 3 Strymon pedals on it. It's the Timeline and the Mobius and the Flint. So I cover a broad range of delays and modulations there, and the Flint obviously is great at both reverb and tremolo. And then I have a Sonic Research turbo tuner, like strobe tuner that I've used for 10 years. I don't like going back to anything that's not strobe. I'm just used to. Some people think it's too flimsy and like it's scrolling around or going up and down. I just feel like it's both faster and more accurate, so I'm sticking with that. Then I have an exotic SP compressor. I don't use that a whole lot, but it's a great one if you use. I mean, I play kind of a lot of country, or I have since I moved to Nashville, but I still never really gotten into using a compressor. I'd rather usually have a kind of light overdrive on that gives a little bit of gain and also compresses a little bit that feels better under my fingers. And then I have several pedals from a Japanese company called One Control, also designed by a Swedish guy. The same guy who designed these.
Cool.
Yeah, I've been doing demo videos for them. That's something you can check out on my YouTube channel. I've done 10 or 15 of them, or maybe even more actually. And they have a broad range of like overdrives, boosts, distortions, a couple of fuzzes. And you can, they're all in the same, like very small format, and you can actually put batteries in them if you want to. It's just like, it's crazy how they can fit that.
Nice.
But it makes it easy for me to switch out a couple of pedals if I have a gig that requires another kind of gain structure or like vibe, or if I just want to try something different. And they all stack really well. And like, as I might have shown in like the dynamics part, or like, hand, tonal, right hand variations. With these settings I have right now, and there's 2 pedals stacked together. Both of them are like halfway up on the gain, so this is not super high gain, but still, quite a bit, especially for chords. But even without turning down the volume knob, just changing to single coil and hitting live.
Nice.
It's a lot of dynamics in there, and I've gravitated towards those things instead of, something that's overly compressed, and it makes me play more in control, or like I can't stretch out and do too much fast stuff. Really, and that's why I don't like too low action either. I tend to do like fast legato stuff that might not sound as musical. I'd rather let it be a little bit tricky and fight for it.
I love that.
The older I get, the slower I play. Have you ever heard that?
Nothing wrong with that, man. Great rig, breakdown. And, we have to thank everybody for chiming in.
Yes, thank you.
We did get the thumbs up, so we're going to roll a track, and you can play us out. One of my favorites from the course. Again, it's Electric Blues. There's a link. There's a promo code. Take that 25% off now while you can get it. This is, whatever style you play, I think this is one of those courses you're going to want in your library for sure. Everybody loved you. T-Jack26, by the way, won the drawing. Who was the artist that you played with, the legendary country artist?
Tracy Lawrence.
Yes. And you could go do some YouTubing and see you in those videos, as well as a lot of other music videos. Man, thank you so much for carving out the time. Thank you for
my pleasure.
Delivering such a great curriculum and great lessons, great presentations. And we're looking forward to having you back really, really soon.
I'm looking forward to it as well. Thank you so much.
All right. So, Tommy, you can give him a hint which track I love, and he's going to play over.
It's in the key of E, man. It's from the contrary motion stuff.
Contrary motion, was that key C? Or did you say C?
You're correct. It is C. Yeah.
Okay.
But we want you to do it in E. No, I'm just kidding.
Well. Okay.
All right, guys. Thank you
close
so
out
much.
with some.
We will see you all next time. And you can definitely expect to see David back in the house here. We're already talking about the next round of courses we'll film together. And with that, play one of my favorite tunes.
Yeah, let's give it a try.
Thank you.